As you can see, this is Kent Hovind. This is Seminar 3. If you haven't seen the other parts to this, don't sweat it. You can see these out of order if you want. I try to make them independent of each other. Up to this point, Kent Hovind has been regurgitating the same arguments that he gave in Seminars 1 and 2. Arguing that Noah's Ark is reasonable, which it's not. All kinds of other bizarre stuff. It is in part 1 of Seminar 3 if you want to watch it. I broke that down. Probably released yesterday. Anyway, I believe he said he was on an airplane and he was talking to some professor who is like the professor of biology or something like that at some university. And he said it's ridiculous for Hovind to argue against the existence of evolution or the fact of evolution. So Hovind comes in and he says this to the professor.
He said, "Do you mean to tell me that you believe all those dogs came from 2 dogs on Noah's Ark? You want me to believe that?" I said, "Sir, would you look at what you're teaching your students? You're teaching your students that all those dogs came from a rock."
That's not actually what anybody is teaching any students. He's talking about abiogenesis, actually, but he seems to be pretending that he's talking about evolution. Abiogenesis is the process by which life came to be, or the process through which life came to be. That's what abiogenesis is. It is not the same as evolution. And there are a lot of questions that we have about abiogenesis, a lot of things that we don't understand. Just because the answer is I don't know, it doesn't mean it's an invitation for you to come in and insert some bizarre explanation like God did it. Absolutely absurd. But, you know, that's Kent Hovind's thing. That's what he does. That's what got him famous. Asserting without evidence that he does know, even though nobody knows, even though the correct answer is I don't know. He's just telling us he does. And the answer is God did it. So anyway, let's keep listening.
He didn't have any more questions after that. I did a debate one time in university, and afterwards this lady came walking down the aisle. Boy,
yeah, I bet he didn't have any questions after that because you stumped him, right, Kent? He says, "Wow, you're right. So I guess I just need to give up my degree in biology and start going to church and dedicate my life to the Lord." That's definitely how it went. And then everybody clapped, right, Kent? Is that how that story went?
He didn't have any more questions after that.
Maybe, if this is true, if he really didn't have any questions after that, I'd be willing to bet that it's because he realized that your arguments are so piss poor and stupid. He didn't even want to bother arguing with him anymore. It's a waste of his time and everybody else's. But I don't know. I mean, this sounds like a fake story to me, honestly. So who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, and then everyone ascended to heaven, totally.
I did a debate one time in university, and afterwards this lady came walking down the aisle. Boy, she was mad. The smoke was coming out her nose. She was angry at me. She came walking straight up toward me. I said, "Lord, I'm coming home." She walked up, put her hands on her hips, and she said, "Tonight, you told everybody that we believe we come from a rock. We do not believe that." I said, "Ma'am, you need to calm down. You're going to blow a gasket." I said,
yeah, he has a way of annoying the people around him intentionally. And this is the reason why I don't take part in debates right here. Because debates are only charisma contests. How can you win the crowd over the easiest? That's what it's all about. It doesn't really get us any closer to the truth of a matter, to be perfectly honest. That's why I just don't do them. Kent Hovind has been trying to debate me for a while. Maybe a year, I think. Probably a year. Waste of my time. Not going to bother. They are only charisma contests, nothing more. Also, you know what I've been thinking about doing? I've been thinking about playing Breath of the Wild again. What do you guys think? I started off playing Breath of the Wild originally on Twitch. That was the original game that I played. I wasn't like debunking anything at the time, though. I was just playing a game. I mean, hell, I could do that now. Well, Mario Maker 2 is easy to like take in bite-sized pieces, though. You know, like if you're watching part 2 of Kent Hovind's seminar series and then you skip to like part 3, you don't have to really understand what's happening in Mario Maker. Like, there's no plot line to follow. You don't have to do it in order to like understand what's going on, basically. And that's why Mario Maker is so nice. It's just little tiny bite-sized pieces that you can skip through. Wow, Breath of the Wild pulling ahead with like a ton of votes. That's nutty. Wow, I guess it's going to be Breath of the Wild then, huh? Breath of the Wild it is then. All right, let's listen to Hovind while the intro starts up.
I said, ma'am, you need to calm down. You're going to blow a gasket. I said, ma'am, do you believe in evolution? She said, yes, I do. I'm a professor here at the university.
Evolution is not something you believe in. It's something you accept or you don't accept. It's a fact claim, not an opinion claim. You guys remember doing those worksheets in elementary school where they'd give you a list of statements and you had to mark them down as facts or opinion statements? Kylie had to do one of those sheets, and then they had to write their own list of facts and opinions, right? Well, one of the people in Kylie's class wrote in the fact section, Donald Trump is my president. Just completely disconnected from reality and have no way to reconnect. It's a failure in our education system, largely. This isn't an opinion statement, Kent. This is a factual statement. Either you accept the fact or you don't accept the fact. The belief in God is an opinion. You can believe in him or not, but there are no facts to be had there. So that's why you say you believe in God. You don't believe in evolution. You accept it or you don't. But this is one of those little things that Kent does to conflate evolution and God, to try to make evolution into its own religion. It's one of the little verbal cues, or one of the little verbal things that he does to try to set the tone of the argument. He's not outright saying evolution is a religion yet. He gets there later. But everything he says, down to the verbiage that he uses, down to his grammar, asserts that evolution is a religion. That's how he does it. And that is what makes this propaganda.
I said, ma'am, do you believe in evolution? She said, yes, I do. I'm a professor here at the university. I said, well, ma'am, would you please tell me then where we came from? She said, we came from a macromolecule. I said, and where did that come from? She said, from the oceans, from the prebiotic soup. I said, and where did that come from?
This isn't evolution. This is abiogenesis. This is talking about how life was created in the first place, not about how it grows and changes over time. Distinct difference.
She said, it rained on the rocks for millions of years. You could see it was slowly dawning on her. You know, I do believe I come from a rock. Yes, ma'am, you do. Better be careful going outside. Don't step on Grandpa. I found her life verse, saying to a stock, thou art my father, to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. There's Grandpa right there. Yep.
See, he likes to make fun of people who understand science and are capable of disproving him wrong because they understand it enough to do so.
I even found my daddy's life verse in the Bible. Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and sore vexed. Anyway, the Bible says the earth was corrupt and filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and it was corrupt. All flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence through them. I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark. And Noah said to his boys, go for wood. We got to build a boat. And so they went.
You see that? He made another little joke. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. That's what the verse supposedly says. Again, I don't trust literally anything that Kent says by default. I look absolutely everything up. Even Bible verses. He's not trustworthy, and he's proven that time and time again. But yeah, he just made a little joke here. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. And his joke was,
flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence through them. I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark. And Noah said to his boys, go for wood. We got to build a boat.
Yeah, that's his little joke. Very funny, Kent. Ha, ha, ha.
And so they went and got all this wood, and they built this huge boat. Now, after the flood was over, Noah's son had a baby and named him Arphaxad.
Oh, okay. So now I guess Kent is going through like the timeline of like births and deaths and stuff to prove that it's been like, I don't know, 6,000 years or something since the earth has been here, what they believe. Complete nonsense. It hasn't been, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Had a baby and named him Arphaxad. Why would anybody name a kid Arphaxad?
Oh, we have a stupid joke incoming. Ready for this? Buckle up.
Can't you see that kid in kindergarten? What's your name, son? Arphaxad? Do you know how to spell it? No. Nobody does. But don't you think one day little Arphaxad's getting big enough, he's sitting on Grandpa's lap and he's looking around like kids do, and he says, "Hey, Grandpa, I have a question. How come we're the only people in the whole world? Do you mean we got this whole planet to ourselves? What happened?" And Grandpa's going to tell him the story about the flood. Actually, they're going to talk about that flood for a long time. We're down in Pensacola. We're going to be talking about Hurricane Ivan for a long time. Okay?
Well, to be fair, Noah's flood was heavily derivative from other stories around that time. Isn't the Epic of Gilgamesh almost like a one-to-one copy of Noah's flood? Like they're nearly identical to each other in like way, way more ways than you would expect. Noah's flood is a cheap ripoff of original stories.
And that's just one little storm. Can you imagine a worldwide flood? Man, they talk about that for centuries.
How did they know it was worldwide, for that matter? Like, how did they come to that determination is my question, because there were only supposedly like 3 people, right? Did they go to Antarctica, like, to find out that there was a flood happening or whatever? I mean, there are so many holes in this story, it's ridiculous. And Kent, instead of saying, "I don't know," which is the correct answer, he asserts things as fact. And again, man, these seminar series, they played for little kids. They played this stuff in churches and even in some schools. And these arguments are used today. That's why we're covering it in the first place.
Actually, Arphaxad's daddy, Shem, Noah's son, lived long enough to tell that story directly to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You'll never catch that reading your Bible, but when you graph it out, it's like, wow,
Isn't that interesting? That's not technically in the Bible, but it just has to be the case because it makes sense. Isn't that funny? So now it seems like he's adding information. He's adding information to the Bible. Extra biblical stuff here.
But when you graph it out, it's like, wow, that's unbelievable. Do you know they're still talking about that flood in many cultures around the world? So far,
in many cultures around the world, they're talking about Noah's flood. I mean, there are a lot of flood stories. Like I said, the Epic of Gilgamesh predates Noah's flood by like thousands of years, doesn't it? Has nothing to do with Noah's flood, though. Epic of Gilgamesh is not about Noah's flood. Every culture, or many cultures, have a flood story. It doesn't mean it's Noah's flood.
170 flood legends have been identified in different countries and cultures around the world. The Hawaiians have a legend that says, long after the death of Kunihana, the first man, the world became a wicked, terrible place to live. There was one good man left. His name was Nu'u.
Again, don't believe a single word out of Kent's mouth. I don't know if this is a real story or not. It may be, but Kent has a habit of completely making things up, just making it up whole cloth. Honestly surprised by how brazen he is with the things that he makes up. So don't believe this unless you look it up.
Was Nu'u. He made a great canoe with a house on it and filled it with animals. The waters came up over all the earth and killed all the people. Only Nu'u and his family were saved. One family saved in a boat full of animals. Sounds kind of like the Bible story, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of does. You don't think the Bible story ripped off this story, do you, by chance? Or maybe ripped off the Epic of Gilgamesh? Spoiler alert, it did. These stories, some of them predate Noah's flood. But no. It has to be that Noah's flood was the original story. Noah's flood is the correct one. That checks out.
Chinese have a legend called the Hiking Classic. They say that Fuhai is the father of their civilization. Fuhai is probably Noah, okay? The story says, Fuhai, his wife, 3 sons, and 3 daughters escaped a great flood. He and his family were the only people alive on earth. After the great flood, they repopulated the world. Interesting. Now, the Toltec Indians in Mexico have a very interesting story. They said the first world lasted 1,716 years and was destroyed by a flood that covered the highest mountains. One family named Cox survived. 1,716 years. Well, the Bible dates add up to 1656 from the creation to the flood. But that's not bad for a legend 4,000 years old. Question, why would there be nearly 300 flood legends?
Maybe a lot of civilizations dealt with flooding. That would make sense because a lot of civilizations started out next to major water sources. So naturally, you would expect flooding to some degree at some point. Of course, they have flood legends. I would be surprised if they didn't. Does not mean that God, Father of Jesus, sent his son to die for our sins to appease himself. Just complete nonsense. These are non sequiturs. You're taking logical leaps that are totally unjustified.
I think it's because there was a flood.
Yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of floods. But that doesn't mean there was a water canopy above the earth. If you haven't heard that, Kent has this bizarre thing called canopy theory where there's a gigantic ice sheet above earth that basically encased the earth in ice all around it in space. And when God wanted the flood to happen, he started melting the ice, and it just gets absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, I'm sure there were floods all over. There have always been floods since the dawn of time. Does not mean there was a gigantic ice sheet above earth that was causing this worldwide flood. Ridiculous.
I think it's because there was a flood. That's my theory. Okay. Probably
Not a theory. It's a hypothesis, and a piss poor one at that. You know, just out of sheer interest, check this out. Let me see if I can find something. Hang on. This is a picture of Alabama's voting districts, right? Here's where it gets interesting. There used to be a river that ran straight through Alabama, right here where all the blue districts are. And that river, long since dried up, I believe, it made the soil there rich. It made it really, really good for tilling land. So what happened was slave owners came in with their slaves, set up shop right here in this blue area where the soil was super rich. That's where the plantations were all set up. And now, a couple hundred or 100 or 200 years later, now that the slaves are all freed, they still live in these exact same areas, and they vote blue as a result. Isn't that interesting? A riverbed determined where the voting districts would be, or an old riverbed determined where the voting districts would be. Something else. Republicans like to argue that they're the party of freeing the slaves, blah, blah, blah. It shows you exactly who the party of freeing the slaves was. It was the conservative party that was enslaving people in the first place, and eventually the conservatives moved from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party.
I think it's because there was a flood. That's my theory. Okay. Probably the Atlantis legend. Everybody's searching for the lost continent of Atlantis. Probably it's another flood legend.
Oh no, is he gonna... just based on Kent Hovind's history of coming up with crazy conspiracies, I'm really hoping he's about to give us a conspiracy about how the city of Atlantis actually exists. Please give us this conspiracy. I need it.
Continent of Atlantis. Probably it's another flood legend. As far as the folks on the boat were concerned, the whole world sank beneath the waves. Actually, they were going up. The world wasn't going down. I think Atlantis is another flood story. Anyway, if you look at the country of Turkey, at the far right-hand side, you will see a mountain called Mount Ararat. It is 12 miles from the Russian border.
Oh my God, the Mount Ararat story. Yeah. After Kylie reported her teacher for saying all of that stuff about atheists and LGBT people, her step-grandfather, her grandma's new husband, he is like a giga Christian, and he found out about it, and he got really, really upset. So he sat her down and started trying to convince her that God was real. Okay, so whatever. I don't care. You know, she doesn't believe it, and if she did, that'd be okay too. Just what, as long as she accepts science, I'm fine. So, anyways, he sits her down and starts telling her, you know, they found Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat. Absolutely absurd. They did not find Noah's Ark. People claimed to have found Noah's Ark, and when it was investigated, it turned out to be the shadows of a mountain range. It was not Noah's Ark. But, okay, let's listen to old Kent Hovind tell us how Mount Ararat was actually Noah's Ark.
On the right-hand side, you will see a mountain called Mount Ararat. It is 12 miles from the Russian border. Very politically unstable region. On a Turkish map, it's called Noah Ungumshi, which means Noah's big boat. That's the name of the region. They've got signs you drive right.
We're going to have to look up every single one of these claims. We're going to have to. Even down to where it's located geologically. Let's see. Maps. Mount Ararat. Let's just look it up on a map. Let's see here. Is it actually 12 miles from the Russian border? Or is he just completely making this up? No, it's not actually. It's not 12 miles from the Russian border. It looks like... Here, let me just pull it up on a map so you guys can see too. Hang on. So this is Mount Ararat, apparently. Now, these maps have changed over the years, but it's right next... It looks like it's plausible that it could be 12 miles from the Armenian border, not the Russian border. It looks like it's plausibly 12 miles away from the Armenian border, but where is Russia? Where is the Russian border? This is Ukraine up here. This is Russia up here. Oop. So, see, Moscow right here. This is Russia. So you've got to go through, like, Georgia and Armenia to reach it. Does Turkey border Russia? It doesn't. I mean, this documentary, supposed documentary that he put out, this thing came out in 2007. It was not that long ago. Does Russia border Turkey? I don't think it does. Does it? The country is bordered by Armenia, Iran, Azerbaijan in the east, by Georgia in the northeast, by Bulgaria and Greece in the northwest, and by Iraq and Syria in the southeast. Turkey shares maritime borders with Cyprus, Egypt, northern Cyprus, Romania, Russia, and Ukraine. Okay, maritime borders. So Russia is like over here, and Turkey is over here, so it shares like water borders, but not land borders, apparently. This is, so I'm just pointing this out. This is what Kent Hovind does. He lies. He lies about everything. I don't know if that one was an intentional lie, but we have to look up every claim the dude makes. Every claim. Let's just step back and listen to the next one. So it's not 12 miles from the Russian border.
On a Turkish map, it's called Noah Ungumshi, which means...
Is it? Noah Ungumshi. Is that true? Let's find out. I'm just typing into a search engine exactly what's on screen here is what I'm doing. N-U-H-U-N looks like, or U-H-G-E-M-I-S-I. Not seeing any results for that at all. There's a rapper on SoundCloud with this name. Not seeing it. I'm seeing some references on, like, evangelical young earth creationists websites. There is a hotel with this name in Cyprus. It looks like it does translate to Noah's ship, actually. Noah's ship. From Turkish. So what did he say?
Ungumshi, which...
Hold on.
It is 12 miles from the Russian border. Very
Not
politically
true.
unstable region. On a Turkish map, it's called Noah Ungumshi, which...
Yeah, I'm not seeing any evidence that Mount Ararat is called Noah's ship on a Turkish map. Which Turkish map are you even looking at here? I'm not seeing that at all. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to need to give me a little bit more than that. You're going to have to give me some type of evidence of some sort, anything. I'll take anything outside of hearsay or nonsense or just blind claims that you're making. I simply don't believe you.
Means Noah's big boat. That's the name of the region. They've got some.
No. You have to give me evidence for that. You can't just make the claim.
That's the name of the region. They've got signs. You drive right up to it. Noah's big boat, this way, 5 kilometers.
I haven't seen, I looked for some of this stuff. I couldn't find any of these signs or whatever. Nuhungemisi. I mean, it's possible that these exist, but who put them up? Was it Christians that are setting up a tour? I don't know. I have no idea. The implication here, the thing that he's trying to make you believe is that the Turkish government believes the Noah story and believes that that's where Noah's Ark is and thinks that Christians are right and set up a tour guide system and a bunch of signs pointing to Noah's Ark because they believe Christians are correct. That's the implication. Isn't Turkey largely Muslim? Yeah. Islam is the largest religion in Turkey. Noah is recognized in Islam as a prophet and messenger of God. He's one of Uluzam prophets. Noah's mission was to warn his people who were plunged in depravity and sin. It looks like the Noah story is a little bit different in the Islamic religion than it is in the Christian religion. But they are similar to some degree because they're the same root religion. They come from the same religion originally. So take that for what you will. Either way, it's nonsense. They didn't find Noah's Ark there on Mount Ararat. Do you want to know what they did find? Let me show you. Let me just show you a picture of what they found. This is what they found right here. This picture. This is what made them think that Noah's Ark was there. It's a mountain range. Plain and simple. It's just a mountain range. There is no boat to be found there. And when you tell them, look, it's just a mountain range, it's just a shadow that made it look like a boat for a second, they say, well, the boat itself has been calcified into rock because it's so old. No, that's not how any of this works. It's nonsense. Complete nonsense. You're going to have to give us evidence for your claims if you want us to believe them.
Noah's big boat, this way, 5 kilometers. The Bible says the ark rested in the 7th month. Now that's interesting. Noah did not get out till the 13th month. Why would he stay in there for 5.5 extra months after the ark rested?
Because the story is nonsense? Is that a possibility?
We cover all the reasons why on video number 6, the Hovind theory. But the Bible says it rested in the 7th month upon the mountains of Ararat. Mountains, plural. The Bible does not say the ark landed on Mount Ararat. Read it carefully. It does not say that. It says it landed in the mountains of Ararat. Actually, there are 4 theories about what happened to Noah's ark. Okay? One theory says
he's misusing the word theory here.
They took it apart and used the lumber for buildings. Second theory says it rotted. The third theory says it's still on the mountain. And the fourth theory says it's in the valley. And the guys who think it's on the mountain go over there every couple of years on a big expedition. They climb the mountain. They all come back and say, we almost found it. I'm not sure how you can know you almost found something, but anyway, that's what they say. And maybe it's there. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
No, it's not. It is not there. I find it interesting that he's not outright claiming that it is there, because, well, I guess he's implying it. He just says, I guess there's a possibility it's not. I'm honestly very surprised that he said that. It's not there. We've gone there. We've investigated. We've tried to figure it out. We've looked around. It's not on Mount Ararat. If there was evidence for this, we would have pictures all over the place. The evidence would be plastered across the internet. It's not there.
They say, and maybe it's there. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me at all, okay? But other folks think, hey, guys, it's not even on that mountain. It's down in the valley 17 miles away. And they think that is Noah's Ark right there, that boat-shaped object.
Who's they? Who is this they who thinks that Noah's Ark is there? I have no idea who you're talking about. When he says they, he means Christians. There is no scientific or actual evidence of any sort of any of these claims.
Is Noah's Ark right there, that boat-shaped object. Kind of a teardrop shape.
No.
In 1960, this was discovered by a high-altitude surveillance plane. In 1978, there was an earthquake, and either it lifted up or the ground dropped down. I don't know. The result's the same. It is now sticking up out of the ground about 18, 20 feet.
What is? Ark ribs are exposed after the 1978 earthquake? No. No. This is just a mountain formation, nothing more. The Ark site after the 78 earthquake, the Ark site before the 1978 earthquake. This is a perfect example. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Look at this. There's nothing here. It's just a mountain range. And the dude is outright claiming that this is a picture of Noah's Ark. No, it isn't. It is not. You're completely full of it. It blows my mind that anybody seriously believes this. It really does.
Ron Wyatt died in 99. He was a good friend of mine. He and many others have spent years studying this thing, but they think it's Noah's Ark. And like I said, honestly, I don't know and I don't care. It doesn't matter to me where it is. And some Christians and creationists get all upset with anybody that mentions there might be another theory besides theirs. Look, my approach to any subject is if there's more than one option, tell everybody all the options and say, here's the various theories on this. Here's why I believe this one, but go ahead and research yourself.
No, that's not how science works. Logically, you have to be able to prove something beyond a shadow, or beyond reasonable doubt, I would say, to use a courtroom term, before you teach it as a fact, or before you mention it, or whatever else. Hypotheses are not really taught in school. I mean, there are some cases in which a hypothesis is taught in school. This is not even hypothesis level yet. This is conjecture. This is like conspiracy theory. I don't go into a school and tell the kids, some people think the earth is flat, some people think it's round. Teach the controversy. No. There are correct answers about some things and incorrect answers about some things.
I think you ought to look at all the options. Richard Reeves took over for Ron. There he is in front of his model of Noah's Ark that he built. But according to them, the Ark has collapsed. Obviously, a boat that old would, cave in and fold out to the side. It's splayed. And so one of the arguments the skeptics use is, well, it's too wide to be Noah's Ark. Well, of course it's too...
No, okay, I'm a skeptic, and I'm not saying it's too wide to be Noah's Ark. I'm saying there's nothing there. I'm saying it's a mountain range.
Wide. Boats all do that. They fall outwards. You can go to any old rotten boat someplace, you'll see the same effect. But radar scans show that there are deck timbers, some kind of huge timbers in there. Apparently, some kind of big structure. They find...
No. Completely made up.
Iron rivets in there. The Ark was bolted...
Wait, they found iron rivets in there? Is that what he said? That's weird because there were no iron rivets. There were no nails at the time. They hadn't even entered the Iron Age yet. They didn't find any of this stuff. It's completely made up.
Together. They knew about iron back then. Not a problem.
Okay, well, let me just listen to this section in its entirety.
Rotten boat someplace, you'll see the same effect. But radar scans show that there are deck timbers, some kind of huge timbers in there.
No.
Apparently, some kind of big structure. They find iron rivets in there. The Ark was bolted together. They knew about iron back then. Not a problem. You can see some of the rivets at the Wyatt Museum, south of...
No to all of this. Nothing about this is true. It's completely fabricated. This is what the dude does. Seriously, he's shameless. He just makes things up whole cloth, and his audience believes him. Really. It's sad.
Nashville, Tennessee. It used laminated wood, 3 layers of wood glued together with a tar-like substance, pitch, made from tree sap. And apparently it's like basic plywood, okay?
It's all conjecture. How would this guy even gotten plywood? He's acting as though they discovered this on Mount Ararat. They didn't. They're making this up completely. There's no evidence for any of this. None of it.
huge, thick layers of wood. And there's no grain in the wood. Interesting. It's almost like the trees didn't have growing seasons, the wood they were using. Anyway, the Wyatt Museum is a converted gas station just south of Nashville at exit 27 on the northwest corner. You can stop down there and see them. Mrs. Wyatt wrote a book called The Boat-Shaped Object on Doomsday Mountain, with all the research she and her husband had done on that. Apparently, the ark landed close to Mount Ararat, got stuck in the mud. Everybody got off and left, and at some time later, there was a mud flow or a lava flow that pushed the ark down and broke the bottom off. What used to be the keel full of ballast for weight to keep it upright was broken off, and it's way up near the mountain, and the ark has apparently moved down several miles from where it used to be. It used to be way over here at the left at a little village called Kazan, which in Turkish means village of 8. Village of 8. Now, wait a minute. There was 8 people on that boat. But apparently the ark has drifted down from where it used to be, and that's another long story. But the government of Turkey has studied all this, and they say, yep, that's Noah's Ark. They even built a visitor center.
Is that true? Did Turkey acknowledge... I'm not seeing anything about the Turkish government acknowledging that it is Noah's Ark. I'm not seeing a word about it. I mean, it's possible, I guess, technically, the Turkish government is largely made up of Muslims, and Muslims kind of believe the Noah story or a version of it or whatever. So I guess it's possible that maybe they claimed that it's Noah's Ark. It's also possible that they just claimed it so that they could get more evangelical tourists to spend money in their country. I mean, who knows? But the Muslim Turkish government claiming that Noah's Ark is buried in their country is not sufficient evidence. I need hard evidence for this. Wow, Fox News wrote an article about this. Apparently, I'm not seeing a date on this article from Fox News, but apparently there's a Fox News article about Noah's Ark being located in Mount Ararat, Turkey. Absolutely ridiculous. I think it's 2017 when this article came out from Fox News. Like I said, they've been talking about this for decades. Some dude happened across a mountain range that he thought looked like a boat, and the Bible mentions Ararat, I believe. And he's like, hey, Mount Ararat in the Bible, Mount Ararat in Turkey. Let's see if we can find a mountain range that looks like Noah's Ark. Sure enough, they came across a mountain range that looked like maybe it was a boat. We would be able to find all kinds of evidence of an actual boat if it really was there. It's simply not.
Now, some folks have said, oh, it's not Noah's Ark, it's a boat-shaped object, it's just a flow stone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even saying it's a boat-shaped object. It honestly doesn't even look like a boat to me, to be perfectly frank.
Flow formation around a stationary object. When mud flows around something, it makes that teardrop shape, like an airplane wing. Yes, I understand. It does. You're right. But the pointed end of the teardrop is always downstream. The rounded end is upstream, like an airplane.
So, why does any of that matter? I'm not believing anything that this guy says at all. Nothing that he says. I don't believe it. I don't believe a word out of his mouth. But just assuming that he's telling the truth, which I have no reason to assume, but just assuming it, I don't see why that matters.
Wing. This one's backwards. There are flow formations in that area, no question. But this is not one of them. One guy argued it's just a fort. Who would build a fort under a hill? Duh. The guys throw rocks down inside, you know. Anyway, some creationists say it's not Noah's Ark, and they get mad at me for even mentioning it. Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to mention it until I start working for you, and then I'll quit, okay? But
awesome. Well, you're going to sound like a fool then.
The Bible says the ark will be 300 cubits long. Now, cubit is elbow to fingertip.
I think this is where Kent Hovind comes in with his conspiracy theory about... Okay, let me just tell you his conspiracy theory, because it's a little long-winded, and he mentioned it in a previous seminar series, so I'll catch you up. There's this thing called canopy theory, okay? And canopy theory is the claim that there is a gigantic ice, like, not an ice sheet that surrounded the Earth, but like an ice dome that encases the Earth, right? It completely encases it. And by encasing the Earth, Kent Hovind claims that it increased the barometric pressure, and it also increased the amount of oxygen that was on the Earth. And a combination of an oxygen-rich environment and more air pressure made things gigantic at the time. He believes that this ice canopy was the direct result of, lizards, basically little salamanders and stuff, growing gigantic, which turned into dinosaurs. Seriously, I'm not joking. That's really what he believes. And he thinks that eventually the ice canopy melted, which caused the flood. And even he acknowledges that wouldn't be enough water to cover the entire planet. He also claims that water shot out from under the Earth, like basically came out of geysers, underwater geysers and stuff. Completely ridiculous. There's no basis for any of the stuff that he claims. But that is canopy theory. It's mislabeled a theory. It does not deserve the title of theory, to be perfectly honest. Oh, yeah. So let me get back to why it's relevant now. Okay. A cubit is a measurement from your elbow to your wrist or something like that. That's how long a cubit is, right? So if Noah's family was inside of this like ice canopy or whatever with higher barometric pressure and higher oxygen environment, Kent Hovind claims that they would also be giant people. He claims that Noah's family was like 20 feet tall. And their cubit, as a result, was significantly bigger than our cubit. So average height is what, 5'10" or something? So my cubit would be, I don't know, 1.5 feet, somewhere in there. He's claiming that if they were 20 feet tall, their cubit would be closer to 4.5 feet or something. And the cubit is what the ark was measured in. So this is how Kent Hovind gets around the idea that the boat was entirely too small to fit 2 of every animal on it. Well, it wasn't as small as you think it was. Of course, he's completely ignoring the fact that animals would also be significantly bigger than they were. I mean, you're just multiplying the problem over and over again. If the boat's bigger because everything else is bigger, then the same number of animals would fit on the ark for a year, as if the cubit measurement was smaller, because everything else is bigger, not just the boat. But I digress. Let's keep listening to Kent Hovind dig himself a ridiculous hole.
Fingertip. I'm 6'1". My cubit is 21 inches. The average standard Egyptian cubit was 20.65, just a hair shorter than mine. That boat-shaped object is 515 feet long, which is 300 Egyptian cubits. So that doesn't prove it's the ark, but it is interesting. It is the right size, okay? It's about 2/3 the size of the Titanic.
Wait a minute. Wait. Hang on a second. Oh, my God. Okay, this is really interesting. So this is a contradiction in Kent's whole theology, his whole belief system here. In a previous seminar, he told us that Noah was actually like 20 feet tall and his cubit was like 3 feet rather than, I don't know, the average of 1 or 2 feet or whatever it is. And as a result, the ark was significantly bigger because his cubit was bigger, right? Well, it measured 300 cubits. He's telling us here now that Noah wasn't exceptionally big? Is that what he's saying?
Hair shorter than mine.
So he claims the Egyptian cubit. Again, don't believe anything out of the guy's mouth without looking it up. But in his notes here, he says the Egyptian cubit was 20 inches. The royal cubit is 19.8 inches. And the Hebrew's cubit is 20 inches. So roughly the same, give or take. But in a previous part, he said their cubits were significantly larger. I should find that. I should find that part. Hang on. Let me see if I can find. I think it was in part 2. Oh, here. This is it. This is the picture. Okay. Yeah, this is the claim. Listen to this.
The skeleton was 12 feet tall. Now that would make his cubit a little bigger, wouldn't it?
Yep, this is it. Right here. Finally found it.
They don't want people to know about these giants because it goes against the evolution theory. The skull used to...
It does not go against evolution to know that we have really tall people.
Giant humans. They don't want people to know about these giants because it goes against the evolution theory. This skull used to be on display in Winnemucca, Nevada until a few years ago when they took it down. It's in the basement. You have to specially ask to see it. A giant human skull. Here's a normal human thumb bone. Underneath is a giant human thumb bone. This is part of a skeleton found at a grave in Turkey right near Mount Ararat.
Yeah, this is getting into the Ararat stuff. This is his claim that, Noah's flood, blah, blah, blah. So listen to this part here.
The government of Turkey says they have found the grave of Noah. The skeleton was 12 feet tall. Now that would make his cubit a little bigger, wouldn't it? People say 1 man and 3 boys could never build a boat that size. You didn't see those boys.
Well, look at this picture. It's interesting to me that he's assuming that their cubit was bigger, and as a result, the ark was bigger, and it could fit more animals. But if everything else was bigger, it could fit the exact same number of animals, right? If you're scaling up everything, it's not going to fit any more or less than it could before. But logic isn't a part of the equation here. It's not about logic. It's about ideology. Nothing more, nothing less. So anyway, Kent Hovind claims their cubit was a little bit bigger, which made the ark bigger. That's what he said in Seminar 2. And now here we are in Seminar 3. I guess he's just tossing that whole idea out the window.
It is 21 inches. The average standard Egyptian cubit was 20.65, just a hair shorter than mine. That boat-shaped object is 515 feet long, which is 300 Egyptian cubits. So that doesn't prove it's the ark, but it is interesting. It is the right size, okay? It's about 2/3 the size of the Titanic.
That's really interesting. So it seems to me that he's just abandoning the whole idea that he laid out in Seminar 2, right? Is it just me, or is that what's happening right now?
It is the right size, okay? It's about 2/3 the size of the Titanic, about 2 football fields long. Pretty good-sized boat. In that region near the village of...
Not just a pretty good-sized boat. It would be the biggest wooden boat ever built in the history of ever, I believe. At a certain point, when boats get big enough, wooden boats specifically, when wooden boats get so big, they start to warp and twist in the water. That's why that's why gigantic boats aren't built out of wood. They're built out of steel, among other materials. That's why aircraft carriers are not built out of wood, because they warp and twist. You would have to have some kind of a special, interlocking mechanism to prevent the boat from warping constantly. The idea that Noah built something that we couldn't even build today, technologically, because wood simply is not a good material for this, is ridiculous. But the dude claims it and doesn't need evidence because he knows his audience will believe him without question. That's how this works.
Kazan, they found 12 giant rocks that weigh 9,000 pounds. These rocks appear at Kazan, 9,000-pound rock, and they have holes in the top. Apparently this rock was to be held over the side of the boat to be what's called an anchor stone or a drogue stone. And the hole in the top of the rock is curved. I have drilled a lot of holes in my life. I've done a lot of building construction. I don't know how you would drill a curved hole through a rock. But there they are. When the Sea of Galilee dried up quite a bit here 10 years ago, it exposed all kinds of beach that had never been exposed in centuries. And all around there, they found hundreds of small rocks with holes in them. It's a common practice in stormy areas like that to put rocks around the side of the boat to keep the boat stabilized. Give it some weight. If it gets windy, you drop them down into the water, and you now have a sea anchor all the way around the boat.
Okay, I'm not sure what he's getting at here. Is he saying that Noah machined rocks so that the boat would stay stable or whatever?
But anyway, there are a lot of folks who think these rocks were actually drogue stones or sea anchors for Noah's Ark.
There are a lot of folks who think that. Who? Give me a list. Tell me who it was. Name them specifically. Give me sources on that. These are called weasel words. It's this thing where You want to give the impression that it's a largely supported, legitimate idea in scientific thinking. It's not. There's nobody who actually thinks that who is not a conspiracy theorist.
This would make the boat stable during stormy weather. It's almost like you're anchored to the water, if you can imagine that. And if it really gets windy, the rocks are going to drag behind you, and now you're always perpendicular to the waves. You can't capsize. One atheist wrote me a letter, and he said, Hovind, I heard your seminar about Noah's Ark having big rocks hanging over the side. You are so stupid. Don't you know if he had rocks hanging all over the boat, it would slow him down?
Like, obviously, Noah wasn't going anywhere. I don't know what that has to do with anything, and I deeply doubt anybody even wrote him that message. He loves to make atheists seem like idiots.
I wrote back, where was he going? There is no place to go, okay? The whole world's underwater, okay? He's just trying to float. You see, Noah, the instructions are real simple. Get in, sit down, float, land, get out. Okay?
No, there was a lot more to it than that. Shovel excrement out of what windows? There's only one window in the entire ark, I believe the Bible specifically says. Only one window. How would you get rid of the excrement? How would you feed all of the animals every day? With 8 people, you have a minimum, bare minimum of 15,000 animals. Couldn't possibly be less than that. And that's assuming that you accept evolution as a fact. Assuming you accept evolution, there were a minimum of 15,000. Not to mention all of the bacterias, the viruses, the parasites. I mean, who took the ringworm? Who took the hookworm? Ringworm is a different thing, but who took the hookworm? Who took all of the parasites with them? Like, the whole story is nonsense from beginning to end, and it is hard not to poke holes in the story. But he's just out here confidently pretending like the atheists are the idiots. It's embarrassing.
Okay? You don't have to go anywhere. No sails. You don't have to steer the boat, okay? One atheist said, well, a sailboat was built with 6 masts and it leaked so bad because of the twisting from the sail. Well, Noah's Ark.
That's true. There's a gigantic boat that was built that was not even as long as Noah's Ark. It was 300 feet long. Noah's Ark was supposed to be at least 500 feet long. This one was 300 feet long. And it constantly twisted and leaked because wood is not the best material to use for a structure that large. It's plain and simple. It's just not. So how does Kent explain that? He doesn't. He doesn't need to. Just believe it on faith. I think he's about to explain that away, so let's listen to what he says here.
Well, Noah's Ark didn't have any sails, okay? It just was designed to float. And some people think it might have had a moon pool in the center because a long ship has trouble going over the waves. It tends to lift up and the ends are exposed and it tends to flex or break in the middle.
Well, that's weird. It had a moon pool in the center, huh? Well, the Bible specifies it only had one window, doesn't it? Just one window. It doesn't say anything about a moon pool. How would Noah have known how to make a moon pool? If you're unfamiliar with a moon pool, it's basically this gigantic hole in the center of the boat, like right in the middle, and it's an opening into the water below. You usually see it in like water substations, like they're underwater, and it's a place where submarines can dock. They float down and they come up under the moon pool, basically. Let me see if I can show a picture of a moon pool. Hang on. Okay, here is a picture of a moon pool. It's like a big opening underwater. So this whole thing is like a cave that's underwater or whatever. And the moon pool leads into the water, and you can float under the moon pool and back out into like an open area. That's what a moon pool is. Here's another one, what it looks like. So they're claiming, I guess Kent Hovind is saying, the Ark had a moon pool, a gigantic hole in the center that allowed him to like shovel excrement and stuff into it to get rid of like the garbage or whatever else. How the holy hell did Noah know how to make a moon pool? That is a level of technological advancement well beyond the Iron Age. Here, look, this is another, in fact, yeah, here you go. Here's a good picture of it right here. Moon pools are openings located in the hull of a sailing vessel. It is not easy to make a moon pool and prevent the water from coming in. Completely, deeply absurd that this guy is claiming that Noah knew how to build a moon pool and that he actually built one. Absurd on so many levels. I can't even. Funny, I never thought about these species when deconstructing faith. Yeah. Yeah, what about the hookworm? What about the roundworm? What about the tapeworm? I mean, it's completely ridiculous. The whole story, beginning to end, is totally ridiculous.
And it tends to flex or break in the middle. Well, if Noah's Ark had a moon pool, that would solve the problem. What it is...
I'm not sure how a moon pool would have solved the problem of flexing and breaking like this person was describing. I don't understand the technology behind moon pools fully, but I feel like that wouldn't have solved the problem of like twisting and leaking and stretching.
Problem. What it is, it's a hole in the center. As the waves go up and down, the water goes up and down inside that hole. Of course, you got a wall built up on the inside. It's called a moon pool. As the water goes up and down inside that moon pool, going over the waves, it acts like a giant piston, forcing fresh air in and out of the boat every time you hit.
Okay, yeah, that's true. It would force fresh air in and out of the boat, but it specifically says there's a single window in the Ark, one window. If it was really forcing fresh air in and out that quickly, that window would have to have been gigantic, first of all. Second, how did Noah know how to do something like this? This is so deeply absurd, top to bottom. Seriously, it acts as a piston. Noah understood the mechanics of, like, engines, basically. Like, he understands how to build a piston and a moon pool. Completely absurd. No evidence of this whatsoever.
Wave. You might actually pray for a good wave once in a while. Hey, Lord, we're about to feed the elephants. Would you please send a wave? Yeah. Anyway, what happened to the dinosaurs when Noah got off the ark? You know, the question of what happened to the dinosaurs has been used in schools to start a conversation about evolution for a long time.
No. We know what happened to the dinosaurs. They were not killed by an asteroid, by the way, interestingly enough. Dinosaurs were actually killed by climate change, as a matter of fact. The asteroid ran into the Earth, which kicked up so much dust and debris into the air that it blotted out the sun for like a year. Chicxulub, Mexico, I think is where the asteroid hit. I forget exactly where now. Anyways, that's actually what killed it, was like climate change as a result of the asteroid.
One of Satan's favorite tools to use is dinosaurs, because kids love them. I spoke at a public school one.
Oops, didn't mean to hit that button.
Love them. I spoke at a public school one time to 300 first graders. Try that sometime. I drove a church bus for 17 years and taught junior church for 17 years. There were 300 first graders in this room I'm speaking, and I got my dinosaurs out, and I said, boys and girls, I got a question for you. When did dinosaurs live?
Roughly 50 million years ago, is that right? I mean, they lived for like a long, long time. When did dinosaurs go extinct? 65 million years ago, roughly. Yeah, I was close with the 50 million years ago. Order of magnitude, I guess. When did they first appear? About 250 to 201 million years ago. So between 200 million and 65 million years ago, that's when dinosaurs lived. That is the correct answer to the question.
I mean, instantly, all of them shouted out, millions of years ago. I thought, now wait a minute. These kids are in first grade, okay? They can barely read. How do they believe that already?
It's not a belief, it's a fact claim. Once again, this is another good example of Kent Hovind mixing up fact and opinion claims. God is an opinion claim. When the dinosaurs lived is a fact claim. It's either true or it isn't, right? If God is real, that's either something you believe or you don't.
Where have the Christians been teaching the truth about creation? Why are we waiting till the kids get their mind polluted with evolution and then trying to win them back? Why don't we just not lose them to begin with? Why hasn't there been a Christian response to this dinosaur stuff? What the Christians did in the 1800s is they compromised their Bible with the gap theory to accommodate the dinosaurs, and then they let Satan have the dinosaurs.
Right, gap theory, he mentioned this in a previous seminar or whatever. In the first few verses of the Bible, it says God created the heavens and the earth, and then on day 6, this happened, day 7, that happened, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't actually say when a lot of this stuff happened. So God could have created, like, the plants and the trees and the blah, 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 and then on day 6, he rested, right? There could have been a gap between day 1 and 2. There could have been a gap between day 6 and 7. There are a billion areas where gaps could have taken place, and it still would have been theologically sound. It would have been theologically in line with what the Bible says. It's okay to accept the science behind dinosaurs and evolution and when all this stuff formed and all of that, and still be in line with the Bible. That's what gap theory is. But Kent Hovind doesn't want that. He wants to create a conspiracy theory for no reason. There's really no need for it. And try to convince people that his conspiracy theory is right. Not just convince people his conspiracy theory is correct, but have it taught in schools. That's the goal here.
That's what happened, exactly. But anyway, there are 16 theories of what happened to the dinosaurs. One theory says an asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula in...
Yeah, there are not theories. There are facts. Okay, he's mixing up hypothesis, theory, law, and fact. A hypothesis is an idea that you have. You think may be the case. You think this might be how things happened. So you start going through tests to see if this holds up. You take all of the facts together and you combine them and try to create like an explanation that all of the facts fit. When that hypothesis has been tested and tested and retested and has a falsifiable element to it and has been verified over and over and over again, then it becomes a scientific theory, which is like the pinnacle. That is the goal for ideas in science, becoming theories. You want to become a theory as a hypothesis. It means you've stood the test of time, and there's absolutely no question that this is correct. Scientific laws are derived from scientific theories. For example, the law of gravity is derived from the theory of relativity and the theory of gravity. Like, there are different scientific theories that we derive laws from, or from which we derive laws. That's how all of this works. So using the word theory here is embarrassing and ridiculous and inaccurate. There aren't theories about how the dinosaurs died or whatever else. We know how the dinosaurs died. And it's not a theory, it's a fact.
One theory says an asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico and killed them 65 million years ago.
That's correct. Like I said earlier, it wasn't the asteroid that killed them, though. It was climate change as a result of the asteroid striking the Earth and throwing dust and debris into the atmosphere. And I think it was Chicxulub, Mexico, right? Am I wrong on that one? I think that's the name of it.
A scientist here in Indiana said the dinosaurs killed themselves off with their own flatulence.
Okay, so he's saying that, like, methane polluted the atmosphere. No, I haven't heard that. I don't know what he's talking about. The Young Oxford Book of the Prehistoric World by Jill Bailey and Tony Seddon, copyright 1995, page 115. He tends to just lie about things regularly, so I'm not even sure if this is true or real. He could have completely fabricated it. The methane they produced caused the Earth's atmospheric temperature to warm up, creating a kind of greenhouse effect. This might have increased global warming to a point where dinosaurs could not stand the heat. I don't think, as far as I know, that's not the case. That's not actually what happened. However, it is a plausible idea. The accepted scientific fact is that dinosaurs died as a result of climate change because the meteor or the asteroid ran into the Earth in Chicxulub, Mexico, I believe.
They could not stand the heat. I'm not sure what to do about a theory like that, but here's the real reason they went extinct. Smoking. Yeah. Anyway, what made the dinosaurs go extinct? Do you realize they're asking the wrong question? The question is not what made them go extinct. The question is, did they go extinct?
Yes.
See, the liberals are always real good at getting us to argue about the wrong subject. They're always asking me, should we have creation taught in public schools? I say, that's a good question, and I will be glad to discuss that. However, there's another question we should ask first, okay? The real question is, should we have public schools?
Oh my God. The dude is going down this road. Should we have public schools?